It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Robin Mines. Welcome. My name is Abel Kawabuchi. Thanks a lot for joining us. Great to be back here on the show. What a year it has been so far. And I know that a lot of people are going through a lot of things. The economy is basically kicking our behinds wherever you are in the country. And we're trying to figure out how we're going to get through the festive season. The holidays are typically known for, a high demand in commodities. And of course, sometimes witnesses a hike in prices as well. So families are, getting closer to the time where they are trying to understand how they will be able to shop for their families, enjoy the holidays as the year winds down. We're going to be starting up the conversation today talking about the economy. I mean, how do we go around fixing it? We have a government that's a few months in power now, and then 2024 year will be the first budget prepared by this government, and we're trying to see how that would affect our lives as a nation. Joining us online now is Kalu Aga, who's an economist. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today, Kalu?
Hey, Bukai, doing fine. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Now, a lot of the numbers we all know, none of them seem very encouraging, if we're being honest with ourselves. Whether we're looking at inflation or looking at, budget deficits, all of these things are very scary to see. It's been 6 months now since the current presidency of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power. We've seen a few things happen, whether it's with fuel subsidy removal, with the Naira and all of that. How are things looking, for the average Nigerian who doesn't necessarily understand all of these economic terms? How are things looking now, and what does the future look like?
I think the key word is uncertainty. Folks don't know what to look forward to. And because the government hasn't really given us a plan, we're not sure if we're going to pursue exports, if we're going to pursue local import substitution, if we're going to fight inflation, strong Naira, weak Naira. We're not really sure where the government is going, because they've gone ahead, they've reversed some. It's always like they put a policy out there, then they reverse it when the public outcry is large, or should we say loud. And those policies are painful but need to happen. But the government's own optics haven't matched their, the policies that they want to enact. So folks are a bit confused on where we're going. And I think that's what you see the general issues is stalling in reforms and the speed of the reforms in Nigeria. That's where we are right now. We're uncertain, and the market doesn't like uncertainty. Hence, you see folks are like, they don't want to invest. And we could take it from there, but that's what's going on.
I mean, you talk about uncertainty there, and I don't know if you're referring to the Nigerians or the government, because with the government, there seemed to be a lot of promises made, before the elections happened. There were promises about fixing things in general. Is it acceptable that the government is uncertain as to how to fix these things? Because many people say, with Nigeria, you never really know what's going on until you actually get on the hot seat. Is that what we're seeing happen, where the government has gotten into power and realized that a lot of these problems are much bigger than they thought they were?
I think the problem is that if you understand the economics of it, there are two big issues in Nigeria. One is the fuel subsidy, because it takes away all their revenues. So all the revenues made from crude oil goes to fuel subsidy. So clearly that has to go, because you need the money to then build roads and build schools. The second was the dollar exchange rate subsidy. You are taking all your reserves to, subsidize the dollar. So you have no reserves to then grow the economy or to attract investments. These two had to go. They took away those two very, very early. And so the market responded. Everyone responded very, very, this is a good move. They were praised, and there was a bit of attraction. But they did not implement those reforms properly, i.e. no palliatives, and the commission on the Naira front wasn't done properly, right? So they backtracked. Now we've got fuel subsidy back. And the Naira exchange rate, they took away the 41 items. They had no policies coming out. They want to tax the dollars and all that. So we're back to we're not sure if they're going to retain those subsidies. The implication is that they're going to retain the subsidies. There's less money to spend. The government is going to spend less money to stimulate the economy. And the problem with the Nigerian economy is low productivity and high inflation. There's a stagflation, for this is a technical term. So because we're not sure what the government wants to do, then the folks outside are not really investing money. You see folks leaving Nigeria because of the policies, GSK and the rest leaving Nigeria. Folks not bringing in FDI and FPI, foreign portfolio investments, into the Nigerian economy to invest in bonds. So we've tried to increase interest rates. That affects the bonds. So this is the point I'm making. If you're clear on what you want to do, you signal to foreign investors that this is where I'm going to, then they can come with you or they can leave you alone, they can change your policies. But right now, it's a bit of we're borrowing to pay down debts, but we're spending like we have a surplus income going on. Okay, so it's not really jiving, honest.
Yeah. I like to speak in lay terms because I feel like for the first time in a long time, or at least as long as I can remember, you have the regular Nigerian checking the Naira rate every day to understand how that affects them. These are people who wouldn't necessarily care about economics in the past. So these 41 SMTs that were removed were promised that would have some effect. We heard something, I think two weekends ago where the Naira sort of went down. We heard all of this talk about, something happening in cyberspace that affected it. And 2 days later, it went back up again. There's also talk about the fact that, whenever this Dangote refinery comes on stream, it would help because there will be less demand for, Forex to import oil and all of that. Are these things what people should be looking forward to? Because they will say, okay, it's darkest before, you see the sunlight. It's been dark for a while now. How long is this Naira sort of drama going to go on for? And when have we even hit the real rate of the Naira, you think?
Well, the black market rate is the real rate of the Naira. The Naira isn't falling. It's going to its real rate. This is the real rate. The Naira you had before was a subsidized Naira. So we took the foreign reserves and we subsidized Naira. So people say Naira is falling. No, it's going to its real rate. It's like lady taking off her high heel shoes, then you see a real hike. That's where we are right now. The Naira is the derivative of crude oil. When you have crude oil prices go up and output Nigeria goes up, the Naira goes up. So if you look at the Niger Delta, the oil theft hasn't abated. So the Naira is not going to rise. It's simple. There is no economic theory about it. You sell more oil, your Naira gets stronger. So look at the Niger Delta. We're selling more oil. We are, but we're going below what we did even 2 years ago. By 2015, 2018, we're doing 2.2 million a day. Now we're less than 2 million a day. So unless you get the oil output up, you can't boost the Naira. It's very simple. Let's talk about the Dangote refinery. Yes, if it's on stream today, your fuel price is not going to go down because the commodity crude oil is priced in dollar. Even if Dangote pays in Naira, you lose dollar revenues. If it pays in dollar, of course, your pump price stays the same. The issue is simply this. The Nigerian consumer earns too little to afford an international price product like crude oil. It's back to this, we're earning too little, low productivity, poverty, inflation. That's the problem, really, that the economy now is coming to its real level in terms of costing. But for the income, it stayed exactly where it's at, 35,000 a month is your minimum wage. At that wage, you can't afford anything imported or anything priced in US dollars. So a bit of it's connected one way or the other, but there's no light yet till you see, I use my Emirates index. If you see Emirates fly back to Nigeria, good. If you see Niger Delta fuel price, oil exports go up, good. Apart from that, no.
That's very grim there. But let's switch a bit now to, because you mentioned there about, the earning power of Nigerians. And I mean, we've seen the unemployment numbers. A lot of people still stick to what they know because I think 2 months ago or thereabouts, we did see a revised calculation of what the statistics are. And it went from, I think, of almost 20-something% down to about 5 or 6% unemployment rate in Nigeria because the government decided to recalculate how they view it. But people on ground know what the reality is. And a lot of what we are going through now can't be helped, like you said, if Nigerians don't have money in their hands. We did have a central bank in the last couple of years that, a lot of people were not excited that they were doing too many things at the same time. What differently should the CBN be doing now, or the Ministry of Finance, or the economic team as a whole, to start tackling these things? If you were there, what's the first thing you would do?
Yeah, I think what the CBN did in the past was okay. I'm not against their development policy, the way they were giving money directly to the banks. The problem was that they were not coordinating properly with the executive arm. So they were giving out loans for, say, agriculture, but the Ministry of Agriculture was maybe out of it, right? So there has to be more of a coordination. We're a poor nation, right? So we've got to do development central banking. Central banks are created to do just one thing, fight inflation. But if that's what the quote-unquote advanced economies do, so the Fed doesn't worry about creating jobs, even though it has full employment, because American economy is really developed. But in Nigeria, you need to really do direct development assistance. So the CBN was okay in doing that. If you start today, you've got to be more targeted, more focused, and be more coordinated with the federal, the local, and the state, and say, what do we want to do? Let me give you a good problem. Food comes from the north of Nigeria. It goes to the markets in the south of Nigeria. If you drop the price of food, that's the pay rise for everyone in Nigeria. What's the problem with food? Let's take away the bandits for now. There are no roads. So if you fix roads that go from the food baskets to the markets in the south, you reduce the price of food, that drops inflation, that becomes a pay rise for everybody. So why is the CBN not focusing on funding roads, forgetting about the rice, dry anchor farming, going into hard infrastructure with the PFAs, the CBN, going to reputable construction companies and says, fix this particular road or this particular rail line to get food from the north to the south. That's one thing they can do right without tolls. And then there'll be an impact directly in jobs, in productivity, even in income and inflation. But when you start to give money, without this coordination, then it looks like it's just washed away into the wind. So a bit more targeted, a bit more coordination, and then we'll get things right. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot for all your contributions. I'm going to get back to you, but we're joined now in the studio by another guest. I just want to get their perspective here. Thanks a lot, Ifeanyi Okoye, for joining us. We're talking just generally about, the economy and, the state of things. Statistics are interesting, but people on the ground know exactly what they're feeling. And, he was just talking there about, some of the things that needs to start, happening for the economy to sort of jumpstart. There are a plethora of problems. Unemployment seems to be one of the biggest.
Yeah.
You go around the streets of Lagos or anywhere in Nigeria, you just see young men just standing around on a Monday afternoon doing nothing. What should we start doing?
Well, I think over time, issues have been robotics, creating jobs. But I mean, at this stage, I believe what matters is the sincerity of purpose of governance by the leaders, most especially, because when there is no sincerity of purpose, the administrative aspect of governance does not suit the governed, because you can't tell people you must sacrifice at the end of the day the lifestyle of the leaders or the people who are in government does not suit with what they tell the citizen. So it becomes a problem. So over the years, people will say there is waste in governance. Waste in governance is just one key aspect of it. But is there sincerity? You tell Nigerians we are going to use 2 billion. Maybe like recently there was a budget and an outcry where people said, oh, how will they budget 5 billion to buy a particular yacht? And furnishing of State House in Lagos, 5 billion. What does that amount to? That some people said, oh, such could give us about skill acquisition center to train people and also empower people, and that those things are misplaced priorities. And those are the realistic aspect of it. Because you can't tell, oh, we want Nigeria, the government can't say, oh, every year we are making budgets, but the impact of the grassroots, it doesn't feel. So the situation now is we must have leaders who are sincere. Because it's beyond, oh, I'll promise roads, I'll tie this, I'll do this. At the end of the day, we are still one place.
I want to ask you about education now, because there's people who are at the extreme of these sort of arguments tend to say we've already lost a generation of Nigerians who have had the worst, either the worst of education or no education at all, which is why you have all of these young people who are not skilled enough, whether it's skills or intellectually, to do anything, because education was abandoned for so long, and now we're starting to see the effects. And it's a very scary prospect because of the numbers we have in this country, and you have that mass of people who are not equipped, to sort of enrich themselves in life. It should be worrisome. Is that a true statement? And what should we start thinking around education? Because the most successful countries in the world, whether we like it or not, whether you're talking about the communist countries or democratic countries, education has always been at the center of why they succeeded, whether it's China, America, Singapore, Europe. How do we start, having those conversations seriously?
I think every society is peculiar to the way the people are. Coming to Nigeria, education is a key factor. But beyond education, we need to sit down and look at the lacunas in our education sector. Where are we not meeting up compared to developing nations? Because what is taking over these days are the tech, the IT, the AI, and other aspects of tech. But have we been able to harness those things to its optimum performance? The question is no. And the curriculum in our education sector, should it be looked at to change some things there? The question is yes. Because we can't be using, beyond saying the education sector, it's in shambles. You can't be using 80s curriculum in present reality. It doesn't work. Go and pick, except of recently, some schools started introducing entrepreneurship in some of the borrowed courses. You studied law, I studied law. We note it today in the law faculty, there's nothing like entrepreneurship. Even the tech sector, for it to be admissible or to bring in tech in law space, they still find it difficult. Until recently, they started admitting the Amended Evidence Act 2011. Before they started admitting will I say digital whatever as evidence. So there's still a long way to go in our education sector. Because look at China. China don't speak English. But their education sector is taught them in their own local language. That's why I see a child of 3 years, they have started coding. Some are going into AI. And Africa becomes their market. So what are we doing to change the narrative and look at the African Free Trade Agreement, catching people young in the education sector, and making it a viable tool based on the population we have? I think we are the largest in Africa than any other country. I think after we will get Ethiopia is at least almost more than 80 million. So we have not still yet sat down and decided, will I say, is it lack of proper policy or proper leadership or the wherewithal or the lack of political power? These are issues.
Yeah. Let me go back to Carlo now very quickly, if you're still with us, Carlo. I want to just ask you straightforward, when you look at the present economic team of this government, does it give you hope? Is there anything you see there that makes you feel like 2024 will start seeing something positive?
Yeah, I mean, the coordinating minister of the economy, Wale Edu, everyone knows him in finance. He's qualified to lead that position. He can attract foreign investments. He knows how to get money and spend money. The CBN governor, Mr. Cardoso, also well known, well respected. Those two guys can change the direction. Their CV speaks for themselves. I think the problem that they have is the political influence around how the government spends money and takes decisions. That's what's really going on. They want to do maybe hard things, but those hard things are not politically palatable. And then, of course, have to pull it back. Nigeria has to take hard decisions. The subsidy has to go, not because it has to go, but because you can't afford it. That's just a fact. If you can't afford it, you get rid of it. There's going to be a lot of pain. But that pain will take you to the next level. The problem is that the politicians are not playing nice. They're buying SUVs and rechargeable fans. So the population is not going to accept pain before promise. And that's where we are right now. That you can have the best policy on paper, but right now, the population is not going to accept any pain if the politicians are not going to accept the same pain as well. And that's where we are.
Very quickly now, in one sentence, he just said he's confident with the economic team, but he's not confident with the politicians around them. What do you think about the government as a whole going forward, their first budget in 2024? Very quickly.
Well, I'll pick from some things he said. You can't say you are confident with the economic team and not confident with the politician. Who are the people who are implementing it?
Yeah.
Forgetting that political power is sacrosanct for economic development.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right political power, they can't execute proper economic policy. So it's still dead on arrival. That is just the reality. So except our politicians, like I said earlier, if there is no sincerity of purpose, we will keep wallowing in the same bottomless pit. And at the end of the day, we get to a breaking point which nobody can move away from.
Well, not very exciting prospects there as we approach the holiday season. Nigerians take their Christmas holidays and the New Year celebrations very seriously. But it looks like we'll have to tighten our belts because it's not the best of times. But hopefully we'll continue the conversation and start finding the light somewhere in the coming weeks. Well, we'll take a break now. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show